Introduction. When it comes to relationships, one of the hardest lessons many men learn is that constant availability, overinvestment, and emotional dependence often lead to a loss of respect. Women, consciously or not, tend to value men who carry themselves with self-respect, independence, and emotional control. The truth is, respect is not earned through pleading, chasing, or proving your worth. It's maintained by showing you can walk away when boundaries are crossed. Detachment is not about being cold or cruel. It's about valuing yourself enough to avoid becoming dependent on someone else's validation. When you detach completely, you send a clear signal. Your happiness and sense of worth are not up for negotiation. This shift changes the power dynamic, forcing her to recognize your strength and individuality, which in turn earns genuine respect. In the end, it's not the man who clings tightly who is valued. It's the one who knows his worth and refuses to compromise it. 1. Respect comes from strength, not neediness. Respect is never granted out of pity, nor is it sustained through desperate attempts to please. It comes from strength, self-assurance, and the ability to stand firm in your values. People are drawn to those who carry themselves with quiet confidence, who can say no without fear of losing approval, and who do not seek validation as a foundation of their identity. Neediness, on the other hand, is the silent killer of respect. When you bend over backward to gain acceptance, constantly seek reassurance, or tolerate mistreatment in the hope of keeping someone close, you communicate that you place their opinion of you above your own self-worth. This erodes a natural balance of any relationship, whether personal, professional, or social, because respect flows towards strength, not dependency. True strength is not arrogance or domination. It is a calm, grounded presence that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. It is the ability to walk away from situations or people who compromise your dignity. It is choosing to set boundaries, even if it risks displeasing others, because you understand that self-respect is a foundation of all other respect you receive. The paradox is that the less you chase approval, the more freely it is given. When others sense you are not relying on their validation to feel complete, they instinctively recognize you as someone of high value. Strength breeds respect because it communicates that you are capable of making decisions, enduring challenges, and maintaining your sense of self without crumbling under pressure. Neediness, in contrast, signals fragility, and people instinctively protect themselves from depending on someone who cannot stand strong on their own. Therefore, if you want lasting respect, focus less on pleasing everyone and more on becoming unshakable in character. Cultivate self-mastery, emotional control, and the courage to remain aligned with your principles, even when it is inconvenient. When you embody these traits, you no longer have to demand respect. It will be given to you naturally because strength is magnetic, and people cannot help but honor those who stand tall without begging for acknowledgement. 2. Detachment signals self-respect. Detachment is often misunderstood as indifference, coldness, or a lack of care, but in truth, it is a powerful demonstration of self-respect and inner strength. When you are detached, you are not emotionally dependent on the approval, validation, or constant attention of others. You no longer place your worth in their hands, nor allow your mood or self-image to rise and fall based on their treatment of you. This is not about arrogance or selfishness. It is about understanding that your value is inherent, not something granted or taken away by external forces. Detachment means you can appreciate people, love them, and be present for them, but you do not lose yourself in the process. You maintain your own identity, boundaries, and emotional balance regardless of how they respond to you. This is a foundation of self-respect. Knowing you deserve to be treated well, and refusing to cling to situations or relationships that compromise your dignity. Detachment also communicates quiet confidence. When you're not desperately trying to hold on to someone, you show that you are whole and complete on your own. This is deeply attractive and commands respect because people sense you cannot be easily manipulated or controlled by fear of loss. You are free to walk away when necessary, which paradoxically makes others more inclined to value your presence. In life, those who cannot detach often become overly reactive, easily offended, or emotionally drained because they are tied to others' actions to their sense of peace. But detachment allows you to engage with life from a position of choice rather than need. You don't have to chase, convince, or beg. Your worth is not up for negotiation. The more you embody this, the more you naturally filter out people and situations that are misaligned with your standards. Detachment, therefore, is not emotional numbness. It is emotional mastery. It gives you the ability to love without fear, give without resentment, and walk away without regret. It is an inner stance that says, I care, but I will not compromise who I am to be accepted. I choose myself first, and from that place, I can choose others freely. This mindset not only protects your energy, but also earns you a level of respect that can never be faked, because people sense the strength behind your calm. In the end, detachment is a bridge between self-awareness and self-respect. It ensures that your love for others never comes at the cost of love for yourself. 3. Independence is attractive. Independence is one of the most magnetic qualities a person can possess, and it goes far beyond simply being able to take care of yourself. True independence is a combination of self-sufficiency, self-confidence, and self-respect. It means you know your value, you trust your own judgment, and you don't rely on anyone else to give your life meaning or direction. People are naturally drawn to those who have a clear sense of purpose, who are comfortable in their own skin, and who aren't desperate for validation. When you're independent, you move through life with an air of quiet confidence. Your worth isn't up for negotiation, and your happiness isn't entirely dependent on others. This makes you far more attractive because it signals strength, emotional stability, and the ability to add value to a relationship rather than drain it. Independence also creates mystery. When someone isn't overly available or dependent, it sparks curiosity and respect. In relationships, this trait prevents unhealthy attachment and codependency, allowing love to flourish from a place of choice rather than need. People who cling too tightly or revolve their lives entirely around another person often lose their individuality and, as a result, their attractiveness. Independence keeps the balance. You can give love and attention generously, but you can also step away, focus on your passions, and maintain your own identity. This balance is deeply alluring because it shows maturity and emotional strength. An independent person isn't afraid to walk away from situations or relationships that don't align with their values, and that kind of self-respect is magnetic. It communicates that you're with someone not because you need them to survive, but because you genuinely want to share your life with them. In a world where many people seek constant reassurance, independence stands out as rare and powerful. It challenges others to step up, to meet you on your level, and to respect the life you built. Ultimately, independence is attractive because it is a foundation of personal freedom, and freedom, both emotional and mental, is irresistible. For boundaries are the invisible lines that protect our dignity, energy, and emotional well-being. They define what we will and will not tolerate from others, serving as a safeguard against disrespect, manipulation, and emotional harm. When you set clear boundaries, you communicate self-respect and establish a standard for how you expect to be treated. People often mirror the way you treat yourself. If you demonstrate that you value your time, energy, and personal space, others are more likely to do the same. Without boundaries, you leave yourself vulnerable to overstepping, exploitation, and relationships that drain you rather than enrich you. Respect is not given freely. It is earned and maintained, and boundaries are the primary tool for doing so. They send a silent but powerful message. I know my worth, and I will not compromise it for approval or convenience. In relationships, whether romantic, familial, or professional, boundaries create a framework of mutual respect. They prevent resentment from building, as you are less likely to feel taken advantage of when you have been clear about your limits. Boundaries are not about control or punishment. They are about self-care and fairness. They are also a measure of emotional maturity. Being able to say no without guilt and yes without obligation shows that you are acting from a place of choice, not fear. People who respect your boundaries are the ones who truly value you. Those who push against them reveal their disregard for your well-being. In the long run, maintaining boundaries strengthens trust because others know where you stand and what you stand for. They protect your mental health by filtering out toxic influences and creating space for genuine connection. Boundaries may be challenged, especially by those used to taking more than they give, but standing firm reinforces your sense of self-worth. Remember, each time you uphold a boundary, you are teaching people how to treat you, and you are reinforcing the message that your respect for yourself is non-negotiable. Without boundaries, respect is temporary and conditional. With them, it becomes a lasting foundation for all healthy relationships. 5. Detachment is emotional control, not coldness. Detachment is often misunderstood as emotional coldness, but in reality, it is a profound form of emotional control that empowers you to navigate life's ups and downs without being ruled by reactive feelings. True detachment does not mean shutting yourself off from emotions or becoming indifferent to people. Rather, it means creating a healthy space between yourself and the constant pull of external situations, so your peace of mind is not at the mercy of others' actions, opinions, or moods. Emotional control through detachment allows you to feel deeply while remaining anchored in clarity, not chaos. You can still love, care, and invest in relationships, but without letting fear, anger, or desperation dictate your words and choices. This mindset keeps you from clinging to what you cannot control and from overreacting to temporary problems. By practicing detachment, you develop the discipline to pause before reacting, to evaluate situations from a grounded perspective, and to respond in ways that align with your values instead of fleeting emotions. Detachment also protects you from manipulation, because when you are not overly attached to validation, attention, or outcomes, you cannot be easily swayed or controlled by others. It's a form of self-mastery that enhances relationships instead of harming them. When people feel you are emotionally balanced, they trust you more, respect your boundaries, and value your independence. Life inevitably brings disappointment, rejection, and change, but detachment equips you to handle these with grace rather than emotional collapse. Instead of suppressing emotions, you acknowledge them, process them, and release them without allowing them to distort your judgment or rob you of your inner stability. In this way, detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the art of feeling without drowning, care without clinging, and living without losing yourself in the process. It is a sign of strength, maturity, and self-respect, and those who cultivate it often discover they are far more resilient, compassionate, and free than they ever imagined. 6. Absence creates value because human nature tends to undervalue what is abundant and overvalue what is scarce. This is a principle that applies to relationships, personal boundaries, business, and even self-worth. When something or someone is constantly available, the mind begins to take it for granted, not necessarily out of malice, but because the brain adapts to familiarity and stops perceiving it as special. This is why limited editions, rare opportunities, and unavailable individuals hold a certain allure. In relationships, when you make yourself too accessible, the other person's interest can fade, not because you lack worth, but because you remove the space for longing and curiosity to grow. Absence is not about playing childish games or deliberately ignoring people. It's about creating healthy boundaries that remind others you are not an endless resource. By stepping back at the right times, you give others the space to reflect on your value and the role you play in their life. In business, scarcity drives demand. The rarer the item, the higher its perceived value. This is why companies strategically release products in limited quantities. In personal growth, absence also matters. You must sometimes withdraw from distractions, social circles, or even certain comforts to rediscover clarity and strength. Time away creates perspective, and perspective is what renews appreciation. Absence, when used with wisdom, forces people to notice what they are missing. It creates a psychological vacuum that only your presence can fill, making your return feel rewarding rather than routine. The key is balance. Too much absence can erode connection, but too little destroys mystery and desire. Learning when to be present and when to withdraw is a skill that turns your presence into a privilege rather than an expectation. In this way, absence is not about withholding for control. It's about maintaining a natural rhythm of attraction, respect, and appreciation in every area of life. 7. You lead by example. True leadership is not about titles, authority, or telling people what to do. It's about setting the standard through your own actions. You lead by example means embodying the values, discipline, and integrity you expect from others. People follow what they see, not just what they hear. If your words and actions are misaligned, your influence will crumble. But when you consistently demonstrate the qualities you want others to embrace, whether that's hard work, resilience, humility, or fairness, you naturally inspire respect and loyalty. Leading by example starts with self-discipline. If you expect others to be punctual, be the first one to arrive. If you expect accountability, own your mistakes openly. This kind of leadership requires courage, because it's easier to demand than to demonstrate. Yet the impact is far deeper when your behavior becomes a living proof of your principles. Those around you begin to mirror your conduct, not because they're forced to, but because they're inspired to. Leading by example also means staying calm under pressure, showing empathy when others are struggling, and making decisions based on what is right, not just what is convenient. It's about being consistent in your ethics, even when no one is watching, because integrity in private shapes trust in public. People measure your leadership not by how loudly you speak, but by how consistently you live out your values. True leaders don't just give orders. They set a tone, a culture, and a standard that elevates everyone. When you lead by example, you create an environment where others feel empowered to rise to their best, not because you push them, but because you show them the way. And in the end, the greatest legacy a leader can leave is not just the results they achieved, but the character they inspired in those who followed.